Ladies and gentlemen, it's a very special day this morning because we have with us, as I mentioned just now, the chairman of the Malaysian Institute of Management to deliver a talk in our series of BizTalk, which for this year is the fourth one. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to read the CV of our distinguished guest this morning, which literally sounds like a page of Malaysia's most eminent who's who, and it's not possible for me to say it by heart because it's so impressive, so listen to his accomplishments. One does not achieve excellence overnight, but when you start right, you are more likely to end right. So that, in a nutshell, sums up the 40 years of solid achievements in management excellence for Emeritus Fellow and Chairman of the Malaysian Institute of Management, the National Management Organization, Adjunct Professor Datuk Seri Haji Mohamed Iqbal, or very fondly known as DSI. He's also the Vice President of the Asian Association of Management Organizations, the regional management organization representing 18 countries. DSI, an alumnus of Clifford Kuala Kangsar, graduated from the Bradford Teachers College in the United Kingdom and started his career as a teacher serving several secondary schools in Perak. He obtained a bachelor's degree in economics with honors and a postgraduate degree, a master in economics in business administration from University of Malaya, and was offered to teach at the Faculty of Economics and Administration. He obtained the ITC certificate from a joint program conducted by the Harvard Business School and the Advanced Management Center of France, and a certificate of education from the University of Birmingham in UK. The former governor of Bank Negara, the late Tun Ismail Ali, was instrumental in exposing DSI to the banking and corporate sector when the late Tun offered DSI to set up and lead the Institute of Bankers and pioneered NERDA, entrepreneurship development in Malaysia. Evidently, the Chartered Institute of Bankers, London, conferred DSI with the rank of a fellow. DSI is presently the Group Executive Director of the Falim Group Berhad, a leading property development entity listed in Bursa Malaysia. He's also the MD of Bandar Subang Sendirian Berhad. His passion and commitments to serve the business society and management community has currently earned him appointment as Chairman of the Business Advisory Council of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, or UNESCO. DSI is the President of the Malaysian Gulf Countries Business Council, and in recognition of his roles in bilateral relations between Malaysia and Japan, he was appointed as Secretary General of the Malaysia-Japan Economic Association, a post he still holds. Honorable Minister of International Trade and Industry Malaysia has also appointed DSI to sit in the East Asia Business Council. In January 2014, DSI was appointed as Chairman of the International Conference on Greening the Hajj, of which, in collaboration with the Islamic Education Foundation Malaysia, Global One 2015 Europe, and Alliance of Religious and Conservation UK, the Bahasa version of Green Guide for Hajj was launched. Its specific outcome is to identify champions from the Muslim world, especially from governments, on greening the Hajj. Given such balanced credentials, UUM has invited Datuk Seri Haji Mohamed Iqbal Router, DSI, as a distinguished adjunct professor for OYAGSB. This is DSI's maiden lecture to the UUM community, entitled Transcending Corporate Social Responsibility into Socially Responsible Investments, the Challenges Ahead for Business. I feel I've already given BizTalk 4. With that introduction, I would like to cordially invite DSI to the floor to talk to our audience and share your views. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I bring the salutations to my brothers and sisters in Islam. At the same time, I extend the best wishes to all others who are brothers and sisters in humanity. We are all one humanity, but sometimes we have different faith. Now, when Padmini was reading out, and I would just say that the lecture is over. First of all, let me say how very pleased I am in this, I should say, Augustus gathering. As I was told that this is not only students, but it is a fraternity of students and faculty. At the same time, we also have visiting members from other parts of the world, some from the East, some from the West. And to all of you, I say a very good morning, and I'm very happy to be at the Othman Yo Abdullah Graduate School of Business in UUM. I come from UM, University Malaya. This happens to be the Utara, the northern side of it. And then you have given me a status of an adjunct professor. I'm not sure whether I'm qualified to be a professor. But when I accepted this invitation, it goes back to about 30 over years when I was teaching at University Malaya at the Faculty of Economics and Administration in the Division of Business Administration. That's where my academic training started. I have then not stood in front of classes, although I have stood in front of managers and professionals in platforms, but usually it's a bit intimidating when you are in the company of academic achievers. So today I feel a little bit, maybe not very comfortable, very happy, but may not be very comfortable because I don't expect something very unique from an academician. I have to admit this. When I was at the university, my colleagues at the universities used to say, Iqbal, you are too practical. And then when I went to work in the private sector, even today, they say I'm too academic. So I think I'm rightly balanced. Now, first of all, let me say a big thank you to University Utara Malaysia, in particular to Mohamed Mustafa Yushak, the VC, to whom I owe gratitude of having appointed me as an adjunct professor. And then to Dean, Professor Dr. Nur Azizi Ismail, who is the driving force in this graduate school of business. And this morning I was a bit shocked when he received me at the airport, because very often you do not see high caliber people playing that kind of a role. I thank you very much for that fraternity that you have shown. And of course my good friend Ajizul is always accompanying me whenever I visit University Utara Malaysia, because he is also very much connected with this university, and therefore he feels he is part and parcel. Now, UUM and the designation it has, I was just telling Professor Nur Azizi that recently, if you have scanned over the newspapers, you would have seen two very good, what I call pieces of writing. One was an advertorial about the UUM, putting across to the whole Malaysian community and the world how UUM is positioning itself to be a management university. This is very important because in business, you always must differentiate your product or your service in order to reach out to that niche market and a very specific targeted people. So in that sense, UUM is putting itself as a management university, and Professor Mohamed Mustafa Ishaq, in another article, he alluded to the fact that this is going to be the Harvard of the East. So it augurs very well for UUM to put itself into that kind of a thing, and probably that is one good reason that you find yourself, many of you from different parts of the world, coming to take your cue at this university and perhaps get the best training and knowledge. Now, looking at this subject that has been given, or the one that I have chosen to talk to you, Transcending CSR. That means we move across from one tier into something else. And what is this SRI? Socially responsible investment, a whole gamut of a sort of a new game that has come into the business world in order to see that business is not only business, but the business of business is also sharing the entire planet and the people, and also not to forget about profits. So the three putting together into an integrated form, you'll find that is the essence of what we are going to look at. And my objective this morning would be not to delve into the sort of an intellectual aspects of this and the discourse that is going on between CSR, the various aspects of the CSR and how SRI comes to play a role, but to give an overview of what exactly is happening in the business world in relation to the totality of the planet and the environment. Without the environment, without the planet in some form of harmony and balance, we find ourselves skewed either to one side or to the other side. We lose the balance, and when we lose the balance, we lose ourselves. We lose ourselves means the life on this planet becomes very, very void. And at this point, whenever I touch this topic, I always like to recall this episode, and I'm sure we would be able to get a little bit of awareness. I'm sure all of you have seen the film Superman. Anyone who has not seen? That's good. Not one hand up. No, everybody has seen the Superman. Now, the Superman film, forget about it. The beginning part of Superman talks about the planet Krypton, isn't it? Krypton planet is degenerating. In other words, we are seeing the beginning of something like what happened to Krypton long time ago. Planet Earth is subject to a lot of stress into the Earth. And therefore, Superman as a baby had to be transported out into Earth. So that gives us a sort of a glimpse as to what could happen in the total degradation of that planet. It becomes not inhabitable. So planet Earth, will it suffer a similar kind of a situation? We do not know, but it might. it might not, depending on how we behave into this. And there is already signs of that in the world, in order to see that something of this kind will have to be addressed, and addressed very, very importantly and also very quickly. Now, some of you would have covered the area. When I was a student in the University of Malaya in the early part of 1970, we were beginning to get traces of what is known as social responsibility. It was not even corporate responsibility. It was traces of social responsibility. In fact, as a member of the business club and ISAC, I do not know whether UUM has got a ISAC chapter. We were one of the founders of the ISAC in Malaysia. Tan Sri Shahid Abdul Samad, former minister and now still a parliamentarian. We formed it sometime in the early part of 1970 to become the first chapter. And we were engaging with the MNCs, the multinational corporations. Many of them were coming for the first time. They came here without any concern for the country or for the environment or for the people. Their objective was set up a sort of a division within the country, do what they like according to what they were doing, whether in America or in Europe, and then they get back the profits and the other things they ignored totally. So the host country had problems resulting from the activities of the MNCs, and therefore the social responsibility issue came into being. Very highly, at the time, advocated by many people, including academicians. Now we have moved away from that kind of pure social responsibility into many other things. As a result of climate change, which I think the scientists were quarreling about a decade ago, whether climate change is real or it was hypothetical. But today, even if you ask a school-going kid or even a kid at home, it will say climate change is for real. Because this is what is happening right in front of our eyes. Volatile, uncommon, uncertain, fast-paced, so many activities are taking place. I mean, we see earth, volcanic disruptions, wind, rain, and so many activities are confusing the whole planet into many other forms. That is on the environmental side. Now, if you look at on the other side, business, was it concerned with globalization about 30, 40 years ago? Yes, there were certain trends of globalizations taking place at that particular time, but the real issues of globalizations were not felt. What is the implication? Because globalization is right with us in every aspect of the work that we do. Whether it is in the mode of dressing, whether it is languages, whether it is going to be business practices, or any other form, you still find the impact of globalization. Then you have the issues, advanced digital connectivity. This is another area that is completely transforming and changing the world, and you have a very important consideration, what is known as the youth problem. I do not know about other countries, but certainly in Malaysia, you'll find that the youth composition in the whole population is not as bad as what it is in many other countries. The components can go up to 30, 40, and 50%. And youth unemployment is a factor, it is a problem to be dealt with by the countries themselves. In Malaysia, luckily, I think Professor Nur Azizi will tell his graduates get employed within 3 months, 4 months, and the government statistics prove that they will get employed within about 6 months, about 30% get employed, and then it takes 1 year or 2 years before the rest of them get employed. So this is a big problem. If the youth don't get employed, these are social problems which will manifest into and impact the businesses. The next one we look at is the aging population. If you look at, in Padmini was telling earlier in the CV announcement, I talked that I'm part of the Malaysia-Japan Economic Association. I serve and I visit Japan twice a year. What is their main problem now, apart from Fukushima and the nuclear problems and so on? Their main problem is population, aging population. And they are worried that their total population of about 120 million may shrink, and their population will go below 100 million. They already projected it. And you know the Japanese are very good at being very meticulous into that. And last month, when I was with the Japanese, they were telling that Japan is going to import about 1 million people. In other words, you can go to Japan, getting a visa and work permit or even residential pass and so on. 1 million people. Who are the people who are going to be given preference in this 1 million getting into Japan? One, women. What is this, getting married and then you get imported to Japan? No, you must be able to marry a Japanese farmer. Because the farms are not having enough people to work at. So they must bring additional people to the farming area. Now Malaysia, you know, oil palm estates cannot function without Indonesians. And now Bangladesh workers are coming in. And then the service sector, the hotels and the other things cannot actually take place without Nepalese and Filipinos and so on. So you'll find that the problems of aging population, Malaysia also is suffering in a way not so profound as in the case of Japan. And the growing middle class. The disparity between the very rich and the very poor is being gapped by a very large middle class. I think if those of you from India, you'll know that the Indian middle class, roughly about 300 million, is equal to the American population. So the Indian middle class is just as good, and that's why they keep on shouting India can be a superpower or not. I don't want to go into that argument. But that's a fact that we can deal with. So coupled with this, ecological decline, resource scarcity, and deteriorating biodiversity. Now all these that I have listed, and on the other side, ecological decline, resource scarcity, and deteriorating biodiversity. Can the business say, forget about globalization, forget about the youth, forget about the aging population, forget about the ecological decline, forget about the resource scarcity, I will get my business done in my own way, in the old way. Is that possible? The answer is definitely no. It's no longer possible. Because you'll find that about 2 years ago, the Japanese invested very heavily into the automotive industry in Thailand. And when the floods came, then you find that there was a great disruption. The supply chain was disrupted and they couldn't deliver the products. Even our own Toyotas and Hondas and other things were not coming out from Thailand. They had a problem. Now this is due to the flood. And likewise, in the case of Philippines, you will find that you had a large amount of wind, destroyed the whole area, and then their production was despaired and so on. So what is prevailing is that you'll find without concern for many of these issues, it is very difficult to follow and take on your responsibilities. Therefore, what happens is that businesses begin to see a decline in profit. Sometimes you may be even wiped out. You can't run your businesses as a result of action that has taken place due to some of these factors. The basic issue now is, everybody talks about this issue, sustainability. Suddenly you'll find that the word sustainability has come into the vocabulary of businesses. If you cannot continue on what we call on the same trajectory, in other words, you look at business, profit, the cost curve, the revenue curve, all behaving in a linear manner. Now we know that economics tells us those curves are linear, but in real life, the curves are not linear. They are going volatile, up, down, and so on. Sometimes you get high revenue with low cost, sometimes you get very low revenue with very high cost. All these conflicting issues come in to undermine the entire business process, the entire business model, and also the profit calculation. So business becomes very, very vulnerable. Therefore, this calls for a couple of things that we can say has come into the vocabulary of business. And more people are asking this vocabulary to be endorsed by the businesses by way of commandments. When I say commandments, my company, the Palim Group, every year when we publish our accounts, we have to put a CSR statement, corporate sustainability statement, compliance statement, and then we are judged on the basis of what our reports say, and sometimes they will audit what you have done and what you have reported in those areas. So new corporate behavior has come about as a result. In other words, whether they are mandated to do or voluntarily they are doing, it's a matter of choice. You are told to do. If you don't do, then there are certain penalties that you will have to face. But sometimes, voluntarily they start doing it as a positive and a proactive way of attending to the requirements. So that makes you one up from the rest of the thing. I would like to, at this point in time, just mention about one report that has been, I don't know whether you have this report in your business school, in your graduate business school, is an IBM report on global CEO survey. Every year they do a report on the CEO survey. What does that tell the CEO is doing in relation to the business? Those who say we are operating within the domain of where we were last year and the year before, they were faltering. In other words, their company and their operations could not go up, push themselves up into achieving higher targets, because they were focusing on their own old ways of doing. But CEOs who are looking at the issues of global nature, the opportunities that are in the global nature, and concentrating on those areas, those companies were doing much better. Now, the sort of areas that comes into whether you are a good corporate citizen. This is repeatedly asked question. Later we will come into the area. The netizens and the social media has also changed the whole scenario of how the CEOs react to in terms of their own business downstream activities. Because the social media can be one good positive area to get your customers more and more into you. So those who are using social media as a marketing tool have found that instead of the criticisms and other things that are coming out in the media, they are able to use that and turn around as a positive engagement with the customers. Nintendo is a Japanese gaming company, you will know that. That company was going down in its activities, in the market share and also in their profit. So what they did is, they went to the customers and asked them to interactively suggest. And a lot of ideas came from them in order to beef up their research and development, as a result of which new products or new services or new things were incorporated into this. In other words, engaging with your customers and getting their feedback itself is going to lift you up in the areas of you are dealing with. Now we come back in the loop and say that never mind about all these, the great things that you have said and the great things that we should do, and in order to save the planet and in order to ensure that there is a social harmony and also in order to see that there is good citizenship in the country. That's good. Where's my profit? If you don't have your profit, then you're sunk. Your sustainability is no longer possible. So the idea is that in the beginning, we find that the buying and selling was the routine, and then when we went into manufacturing and the other areas, you'll find that the area of involvement became bigger and bigger. You find that apart from the fact that the company has to deal with the shareholder element, you have to deal with other stakeholders. So the focus and attention from that of maximizing your profit and making the shareholders happy becomes one of, okay, I have to ensure that the shareholders are happy, but at the same time for sustainability issue, there are others who are also equally important as the shareholders. You come into the area of suppliers, those who are bringing you the various products in order for the products to be either enhanced and value added, or the products will have to be passed on to other groups in the supply chain. Workers, the employee welfare is a very important thing. Now you'll find that in this country, in Malaysia, there is an organization known as the Employee Provident Fund, EPF. If the company does not remit the deductions made by the company in time to the EPF and credited for the benefit of the employee, that employer, that firm will be charged in court and maybe even fined in order to do that. In other words, not only the employee must get his salary and emoluments, but there are other aspects of it where the statutory contributions made will have to be maintained in the proper order. Customers, I've already mentioned about customers. Then we look at employees may have their own associations, like trade unions and so on. Sometimes the trade unions can be the cause for some disruptions. You'll find that the employees are quite happy because you have taken them into confidence in some ways, but you'll find that the employees, because they are related to the unions, and the employee union is not what is known as a domestic union, that is in the company itself, but it is industry-wide, then a company which is giving a higher remuneration and emoluments package may find itself out of place compared to the rest of the industry norms and rates and so on. Local councils. I think in this country there is always a problem. They say when you want to put up a signboard for your advertisement, also you have to get a license. If you want to manufacture something, you have to get a license. There are so many procedures, but whether they are good or not good, I'm not going to say. But the fact that the local councils, at the same time, you'll find that the state authorities, they have got also to play a role, and then the federal government. We have got 3 tier. In Malaysia, we have got 3 tier. 1 tier at the local council, if it is a town, at the town council level, and the next level is at the state level. You have to get state level approvals and also payments to the state, and then you go to the federal level in order to do that. And of course, finally, we have got now a very important group of people in the society, NGOs. Sometimes the NGOs become the no-goes. In other words, everything may be right, but the NGOs will put themselves into a sort of a blockade. You know, there are certain industries which will be stopped by the NGOs because of that.